Well, Charlie and I have had plenty to say about compensation, and some of it makes our stomach turn.
A director getting $150,000 a year from a company who needs it is not an independent director.
They're looking for chihuahuas and not Great Danes. Yeah. And I hope I'm not insulting any of my friends that are on comp committees.
You're insulting the dogs.
No.
I've been on 19 boards. They put me on one comp committee, and they regretted it subsequently.
For the last several years, both Greg and Ajit have been vice chairman, and they both every year gotten exactly the same amount of compensation, down to the last dollar. I think the reason Warren and Charlie did that is to avoid envy and avoid anything. I mean, even though these two guys are very high quality individuals, they didn't want to go anywhere near the envy kicking in or whatever else. And so Greg has been paid 20 odd million for several years. And Warren has said about Ajit that many times when he's paid him, he felt he left out a zero. Ajit is responsible single-handedly for creating more than 100 billion, maybe 150 billion in value for Berkshire shareholders. We can never compensate him enough. I mean, in the sense that if Berkshire paid him something like 30 billion or something, then it might be appropriate. But they haven't paid anywhere near that. I think one time there was some hue and cry about Jamie Dimon's compensation. And I think Jamie was making like 25 or 30 million. And Warren said, anytime Jamie wants to come to Berkshire, I'm happy to double it. Okay. He was telling people that you think Jamie's overpaid at 30 million. Well, I'm willing to give him 60 million base salary tomorrow, without even defining what he'd be doing for us. So Greg is seriously underpaid. Ajit is seriously underpaid. Also, you have to understand, Greg had a significant stake in Berkshire Hathaway Energy, and that got sold to Berkshire. So Greg's net worth, I think, is somewhere between 700 million and a billion, somewhere in that range. So between us girls, not much of his net worth is in Berkshire. If I look at Ajit, for example, Ajit has been taking his salary after expenses, whatever else, and just buying Berkshire stock, and he's been doing it for decades. So I would say that I don't know what Ajit's net worth is, but I would guess that maybe 80% or more of his investment, maybe even 90% or more, would be in Berkshire Hathaway. So Greg is plenty diversified. I think he came up with putting the money into Berkshire stock on his own because I think he felt it's appropriate thing to do. He's not at Berkshire for a paycheck. Greg is very smart. He doesn't need to work another day in his life. And any number of people will pay him multiples of that to work for them. Look at Sundar's compensation. Look at Satya's compensation. Look at those hired guns in those companies. I mean, Sundar is like more than 500 million, I think, and might be underpaid.
We have very simple systems on comp, but some of our businesses are terrific businesses. And so we have very high standards of performance before people get performance bonuses. Some of our businesses are very tough businesses, and the threshold is much lower, but the managerial talent needed to reach that threshold is just as much as with the higher threshold in other businesses. It's not compensation is not rocket science. I mean, people will want you to think it is, and you read these proxy statements and it blows your mind what they get into. I mean, the proxy statements are thicker than the annual reports because they're talking about the compensation of people, and it is not that complicated. We've had, in 38 years, we have never had a CEO leave us to go to another business, except a few where we've made the decision ourselves, but very few. Frankly, we've never had big problems with compensation because I think our arrangements are rational. When capital is an important part of the business, we stick a charge for capital in. If it's an unimportant part of the business, we don't stick it in. We don't believe in making things more complex than needed. So we don't try for all kinds of little refinements, which a compensation consultant would come in and tell you was needed, because that's how he would justify a large bill. And he would also come in and tinker with it a little the following year and the following year and so on. We could spend $1 million a year on consultants to get an answer we can get in 5 minutes, frankly. I mean, it just isn't that complicated. Can you imagine a consultant coming around and saying, I've got a 1-paragraph compensation arrangement for you? Are they going to be able to send you a large bill for their consultancy? Of course not. So they've got to make things complicated. And we don't believe in that. We want things that are very easy to understand, and we've just never had a problem with it. And we get good results out of our managers. The main reason we get good results out of our managers is that, they like hitting 400. They like hitting 400 and being fairly paid, but they The fact that they batted 400 is the biggest thing to them in life, and it's it's sort of the way we feel. If we get a good batting average in our business performance, the pay is incidental. Now it shouldn't be incidental to our managers. It's got to be fair, or nobody wants to work in an environment where they feel they're being treated unfairly. But that is not a complicated procedure, and we do make them very specific to the enterprise that's under their control. We do not pay the people at See's Candy based on how the Buffalo News does or vice versa.
There are more problems with having the wrong manager than with having the wrong compensation system. I mean, it is enormously important who runs, you name the company, Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, American Express, and any compensation sins are generally of minor importance compared to the sin of having somebody that's mediocre running a huge company. That said, Charlie and I think that compensation there's a natural tendency because of ratcheting, because of the publicity of what other people get, and because of the lack of intensity in the bargaining process. I mean, you read about labor contracts, where impasses go on for weeks and where they negotiate till 3 in the morning, and both sides take their case to the press and everything. I ask you, when have you heard of a comp committee, working till 4 in the morning, declaring an impasse for a week, not being able to make a deal? It just doesn't happen because the CEO cares enormously how he or she is paid, and to the comp committee. And they're doing perhaps a little better job now, but it's basically play money. And of course, as I pointed out in the past, I've been on 19 boards. They put me on one comp committee and they regretted it subsequently. They are looking for Cocker Spaniels with their tails wagging to put on comp committees, and they're not looking for Dobermans. And I try to pretend I'm a Cocker Spaniel just to get on one, but it doesn't work. But there is not a parity of intensity in the bargaining process. One guy cares enormously and the others don't. And as Charlie has pointed out in the past, what really drives a lot of this ratcheting impact is envy. I saw that on Wall Street, that you can talk about greed, but if you paid somebody $2 million, they might be quite happy until they found out the guy next to them made $2.1 million, and then they were miserable. And Charlie also has pointed out that envy of the 7 deadly sins is probably the dumbest, because if you're envious of somebody, you feel terrible. And the other guy isn't bothered at all. So all you get out of envy is this miserable grinding in your stomach and all that sort of thing. Compare that to some of the other sins like gluttony, which we are about to engage in. There's some upside to gluttony. I'm told there's upside to lust, but I'll leave that to Charlie to explain. But envy, where the hell is the upside? But it does produce this ratcheting effect in pay. The comp committee sits down. The human relations person comes in. The human relations person knows that what the CEO thinks of them is going to determine their future, and the human relations department recommends some comp consultant. The comp consultant knows that his recommendation to other firms is dependent on what these people say about him. So under those circumstances, can you imagine that it's anything like a fair fight? It's a joke.